Alright, welcome back. Hope everyone's having a lovely day, a lovely night wherever you're from, and real quick before we get started, as always, I want to give a lovely shout out to the channel members on this channel. So thank you so much to these lovely commanders here that you see on screen. Thank you guys so much for your guys' constant generosity and support to me as always. It really means a lot to me, so thank you guys so much. And if you guys are actually interested in becoming a lovely commander yourself, you're interested in any of these cute and lovely emotes, loyalty crown badges, you want a special role in the Discord, make sure to join the Discord. But as always, if you choose to do so, thank you so much. Just remember that's not the only way that you can support me. Just watching the content like you are right now is truly the best way. Liking, subscribing, and commenting, everything really does help, so thank you guys so much. And for today's video, before we get started, I want to give a massive shout out to Smilegate for making this a paid promotion video. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. That being said, with this opportunity, I still get to voice my own opinions, my own critiques, so this is going to be an honest review of Yuki, giving my thoughts and also showing you how to build her. Timestamps for wherever you want to go down below because this is going to be a little bit of a long one. And funny enough, right now we still have around close to 4 days for Yuki's banner, but they are also advertising for Chizuru, so I'm excited for her banner. But just like Yuki's, just like Haru's, she is going to be a standard character. So if you want to save all your pulls for like the super meta breaking characters, we don't know how Chizuru is yet, but she is also not a limited, so I'd maybe hold because this game can be a little bit expensive, you know, the 1%. But just keep in mind if you are hesitant for pulling for Yuki, just remember she's also not really a plug-and-play character like a lot of the characters we're used to. I think that's one of the biggest factors that we saw almost day one when a lot of people were instantly calling her trash. Yuki is someone who needs a lot of investment, the right team and the right deck that you need to build out and have patience with. Not a lot of people have that, they just want to have fun and play, which is completely understandable. If you want to pull for waifu, go for it, but also you can just save, because right now if we actually go look at the combatant banner right now, and we go look at the probability guide, Haru is here, so they are going to be added to the standard pool. It might just get a little bit harder just because it's going to start diluting the pool more and more. So up to you if you want to go that route, but I completely understand. I obviously went all in for it because this is the character that made me want to play CZN in the first place, and I love the game even more. And I got really lucky, I'm going to be honest. Did get really lucky. And one of the more unfortunate aspects of Yuki is that her Iceberg Cleave card has a 20% debuff, and you cannot remove that with any form of epiphany or anything like that. The only way that you can remove that minus 20% damage is with her first dupe, and I think that's really, really scummy in my opinion. Like, I know a lot of games do this, and I just still don't like it, so I'm going to call it out when I see it, because I feel like they could have done something else and just had it be an epiphany that removes it regardless, and that would have been a nice like compromise. But instead they went this route where they almost basically paid, you know, sold the solution to you for their own problem that they made, which is a shame. But also I got her E3, so, you know, I can't really talk about it. So if you really don't want to deal with that, like maybe you can still do fine with a lot of other decks that I've seen, even at E0. Just gotta have patience with it. And then when we're talking about our partner Westmacott is surprisingly not going to be their #1 pick. Her #1 pick is actually going to be Lillian. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But just keep in mind that if you don't have Lillian, Westmacott is definitely going to be the way to go. Or you could just use your good old Douglas. But Westmacott is not the #1 priority. But now I want to talk about Yuki herself. And I am, you know, sipping for her a little bit. Customize my save data. Have her at 20 affection. She's probably my top used combatant now. But when we're talking about teams for Yuki, this is where it gets kind of interesting because she's a little picky because of the drawing ability that she needs for her cards for the inspiration to kick in. So there are a few ways you can go about it. I've seen a lot of people have fun with using like just Khalip just for the 2 costs and just the nature of Khalip just taking care and just babying all the other teammates that she has. But in my opinion, almost a must-have pick on your team is going to be Veronica. One of those reasons is that not only does her ballistas let her target characters, like even single targets, so it might benefit Yuki to have, but if you have the giant ballista from an epiphany for the firing preparation, you're good to go, because that can target everybody, so there's some synergy there. But one of the more important aspects is the Sir Kowalski and the repose, and that's because of the drawing card abilities that she has. So you get more drawing ability for Yuki, and in my case for the save data, I have Sir Kowalski with a Divine Epiphany that draws 2, and it's not an exhaust card, and they're free. And even though it's a low cost, you know, save data, that's pretty good. I get a lot of good drawing ability out of her, and some decent damage, so I feel like it's almost like a win-win having Yuki. I feel like the biggest point of contention is when we're talking about that third character. And a lot of people default to Mika, and I know there's a lot of Mika fatigue in the community. Rightfully so, she's always just going to be the plug-and-play character. You get that healing, you get that AP to just constantly keep drawing. So it makes sense that a lot of people use Mika, but she is not the only other option. And I would love to be using Cassius. Cassius is another great option for a very different reason, but he has a big caveat, and is that if you really want him to be really good, you want him to get his first dupe. The reason why is his first dupe actually upgrades the Joker card, because it adds the option for the discarded pile. And if you don't know what his cards do, for his cards, the Joker card, the default is that you choose one card from the draw pile to draw. But if you get him dupe 1, you can choose from the draw pile and the discard pile. So it's only halfway good right now. Now that's not a deal breaker, I just don't feel like investing in him right now because I need all my investment for Chizuru coming up. But you can do some fun stuff with Popeye Popper. Remember with the quest that you can get, more than likely with Yuki, you will be constantly doing either triple ones or straights, because this uses 1 cost cards or a 0, 1, and 2 cost, let's say for a Flash Slash, or if you keep one of the basic cards, that's 2, that as well. So you'll be constantly going through these quests, and if you Epiphany his Popeye Popper, and you get to choose one out of the 4 quests to start, you might be just choosing either straight or triple 1 depending on what your deck is looking like for Yuki, and you're going to be constantly getting those extra cards, so it's always nice to deal with that. But also, you get some nice drawing power depending on what you get for shuffle. You can do some interesting things with some of these epiphanies. So I feel like it's nice, and I really like Cassius, so hopefully I get that dupe 1, and I might have some more like incentive to invest in him, but just not now. Now the last character I want to talk about in this case is going to be Nia, and Nia is interesting just because of the nature of her manipulating the deck a little bit. This could be with Nia's Curiosity, with checking 3 random cards from the draw pile, and you choose 1 to draw, discard the rest. But G-Cord has something similar to this, because the default card is activate the top 1 card of the draw pile. But if you get the right Epiphany, which is this first one, you check the top 3 cards of the draw pile and then you choose 1 to activate. That's really good. And then even with Adagio, which I feel like actually kind of coincides with G-Cord, you can do some crazy stuff, especially if you get, like, let's say this last one. Even though you discard 1, you draw 2 cards of the commander who owns the card that was discarded. So let's say for Yuki, you choose to delete the upgrade card, but then you get 2 like Iceberg Cleaves or something, or an Iceberg Cleave and a Flash Slash. That's just more damage that you're going to be able to produce from that. So that can be really nice depending on how your card setup is looking for that round. But then, at the same time, I don't really like her playstyle. It's just not my cup of tea. I know some people really love Nia's playstyle. I just realized it's not for me, so all in all, I am the basic bitch that does just use Mika, but I do want to bring up those other options as well. I think I've seen people do stuff with Rei as well, but I'm not too versed into that nature. But just keep that in mind. Those are some characters that you can keep in mind for team building. And when we're talking about her cards now, for Yuki, let's just say that when you're starting a run and you're trying to figure out what you want to go for, first things first, hopefully you can convert it into like a removable mutant sample or anything, but get Flowing Parry out of here, alright? Let's be real here. We're not using Flowing Parry. Depending on the type of build that you are going for, you may want to keep Rapid Slash because it's a really strong card, and depending on your build too, it can be beneficial. For me, I just get rid of it because I want to go for the low cost cards, which for me was actually perfect, because when we're talking about the Epiphany cards, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. And first off, if you have to choose a priority for actually duplicating a card, you're either going to do Iceberg Cleave or Prepare to Subdue. If you can do 1 copy of both, even better. But Prepare to Subdue is such an important card because it lets you draw 1 of your own attack cards, and it'll also create that inspiration effect. And there are some amazing Divine Epiphanies that you can grab that gives you like vulnerable to the enemies, some AP, but based Epiphany alone, I personally really like this 4th one. I'm biased because my save data does use this one. It's just really strong and consistent, but you can't really go wrong with any of these Prepare to Subdues. They all have a purpose, except in my opinion, the one that you should avoid is the draw 2 attack cards for the decreased damage. I just don't think it's really worth it for the decreased damage. I feel like 20% still is just a little too much when you can just avoid that entirely. And then when we're talking about the other cards, let's say we're talking about Flash Slash. Flash Slash is pretty easy to choose from depending on what you're going for. If you are trying to still do like a single target build, you're always going to be doing this retain one because it targets only a single opponent. That being said, Smilegate did say that they want to focus on trying to build something else for her, using epiphany cards that aren't being used as often. So who knows? Because I know some people do not even use this third Flash Slash, and it's just not worth it. A lot of people just use any of these others. If you don't mind the extra 2 cost, this +1 hit can still be really nice. But any of these first 2 are pretty good as well, especially if you're just trying to keep AP cost low. The better one, in my opinion, that you could go for is honestly probably this default Flash Slash, just because you get a good boost of damage and then, you know, it goes down 1 AP. Can't really go wrong with it. But any and all are fine. Trickery Strike is very dependent, because if you need this third one, it's probably because you might have a default Yuki that might assist this a lot better. Because if you get Yuki to E2, all of the cards are going to have the inspiration effect for the first 2 rounds, and then after that, you're going to need some help. So I feel like if you don't have that E2, maybe this third one is going to be helpful for you. But in my case, I really like having any of these other cards that still keep it. In my opinion, I kind of avoid this one just because I don't want it to just be a damage card. I want it to affect other cards. So if you could get like 1, 2, or 4, I feel like you're in a good place there. If you want to have more of the ability to just like focus on just choosing what you want, you might just want to have this first one just because it lets you choose. But that's entirely up to you. Freezing Blade is just an upgrade card, and in my opinion, I just keep the 0. Obviously, it is an initiation card, which is unfortunate, but it's a 0 cost, and honestly, I really don't care for this card. If you like this card, go for any of the other ones. I would possibly avoid maybe this last one just because I feel like that's the whole point of Trickery Strike, and I feel like it's just no reason to just have the others, but that's just my take on that. In my opinion, the most important card is Iceberg Cleave because it's a very, very powerful card. That's why there's no Epiphany on it, because they would be really insane. So if you can get another dupe of this one, just like I mentioned, really, really handy. And Ego Skill, kind of a question mark, I'm going to be honest with you, because the 300% damage to all enemies feels lackluster to me, and even if you move all the attack cards, it's an additive percentage that you keep getting. I feel like it's not enough. I use it still, but sometimes it just feels like it's really underwhelming, especially for how cool it looks. I wish it did a little bit more, especially for 5 points. And then partners, this is where it's interesting, because right now I am using Lillian. One of the biggest reasons why I'm using Lillian is because in my case, I'm using a lot of low cost cards, and she's really specific. So with her Ego Skill, not only does it deal 100% damage to all the enemies, it draws 1 attack card from the assigned combatant with a cost of less than or equal to 1. And yes, when you pull a card and if it's 1 because of the inspiration, that still counts. So if Flash Slash gets decreased because of the cost when it's drawn by an ability, that still counts. So you'll still be able to pull those cards. That's really handy to me just because it's very hyper specific. And one of the only unfortunate aspects about someone like Westmacott is that it moves, you have to move 1 card from the draw pile, and then you draw 1 assigned combatant card, but you can't choose. At least with Lillian, you get an idea of what you might be able to get because of that low AP cost. You won't worry about any other card. And even if the damage bonuses don't look that impressive for the additional striker effect, I still feel like the Ego Skill more than makes up enough for it in comparison to the hyper-specific nature of just only having it for 1 turn for someone like Westmacott. And the fact that it's a rate up and that costs rate up pools, Lillian is very much a better alternative. If you do not have Lillian, then just use Douglas. If you have more dupes of Lillian, even better and more worth it than trying to invest in Westmacott. Now that being said, partners out the way, let's talk about save data. Now save data, I kind of did, make mine a little drippy. She looks pretty cute, so I kind of simped a bit. But I got really lucky with my save data. Now I have 2 kinds of save data. Remember, I said that focusing on Prepare to Subdue, Iceberg Cleave is even better, and I have the low AP cost cards and everything, so I'm really happy with this. But a card that I would really try to go for, especially if you are building Yuki, is if you can get Aggressive Mutant, draw 1 own attack card, and then for 1 turn, plus 50% damage amount, and then I actually managed to get an Epiphany on this that applies Vulnerable to all enemies, which is very helpful for making her even starting attacks even stronger, which is fantastic. And in my opinion, I think this is definitely the way to go. Now, this was not my main save data at first. My old main save data was this one, which I actually had a pretty nice setup, but I had some mistakes with my Epiphanies. I don't really like this Trickery Strike card because it doesn't really benefit me the way that I want to. I do not have my Freezing Blade at 0 like I do my new one, and I have a different flash slash than I want. I do not have another Iceberg Cleave, but I do have the same aggressive viewing card, and I have Forbidden Algorithm, where I get to create a random forbidden card. So even though I don't have that in this new set, I'm more happy with this set because it feels more consistent for Yuki, and it's going to help out, especially with Lillian. And it was a very expensive set, you know, 120 points. Now, my specific gear in particular, I'm using the W52 Dopamine Injector, which, when drawing by an ability, which you do a lot for Yuki, increases the damage amount by 20% for 1 turn, 2 times per turn. So that's really nice and consistent that you just get that extra damage bonus. Now, there is a mythic piece that is much better than this, but this is just what I ended up getting for my run. And honestly, I'm more happy with the chest plate just because I feel like there was just less options for a good chest piece regardless. And my chest piece that I ended up getting was Fragment of the Empty Void. And this one is really handy because at the start of the battle, you discard up to 3 cards, and then you draw new cards equal to the number that you discarded. This is really handy just because I feel like you can manipulate the deck a little bit. And let's say I have some like random basic cards that aren't Yuki's that I want to get rid of. Do that, and then boom, I'll probably get a Prepare to Subdue with the amount that I have. Really handy. And then even better with my low cost build that I have here. At the start of the battle, you change the cost of 1 card in your hand to 0 for 1 turn. So I get to just keep using cards more and more just because it'll be a little bit cheaper. Even better. But where do you go look at the gear? What should you go for Yuki? Honestly, everyone's builds are going to look different, but in my opinion, focus on farming the new seasonal chaos. I feel like that's going to be the main priority right here, because regardless, I feel like it's so important to look at the equipment and know what you want to go for. And that mythic weapon piece that I showed off that would be the best piece is the Chimera Knight, because when you draw by an ability, you increase the damage of attack cards of this unit by 35% for 1 turn, 1 time per turn. But the difference between the weapon and the chest plate, in my opinion, for the seasonal content is that there's not many better choices like there is for the weapon and the chest plate. So like the chest plate, I really like the mythic piece because there's not that many better options for a good chest piece. In my opinion, like the next best thing that you would get for like a chest plate is maybe like when taking damage after 1 turn plus 80% fixed shield at the start of the turn. It's kind of like whatever. You could probably focus on some other ones. At the end of the turn, if you have 3 or more cards in hand, plus 140% fixed shield, it's just like nothing crazy. But in comparison with weapons, there are some better options if you don't get the mythic, and that's stuff like that injector dopamine that I showed you before. But another good one is the Mutant Predator Spike, because when there are 4 or more cards in hand, it increases the damage amount by 30%. This one's also a really good option, arguably better than the W52 Dopamine Injector, but still a really solid set. And then obviously my superconductive protein ring that I'm using. I feel like it's kind of fair game. I know there's some people who just kind of default using the replica core, but if you can try to go for one of these two as an option if you don't have the mythic, I feel like that's a better way to go about it. But that's just my way. You know, obviously it might not be perfect. Sometimes some people might have a great build for a deck, but their gear just kind of sucks. That's just the name of the game. Have to keep going and keep grinding, which is completely understandable. Some people don't want to do that. But with that farming out the way, we got to talk about a different type of farming, and that's the potentials. She's a very expensive girl. First off, you're going to be doing all these basics, and then the common cards or the neutral cards, whichever one you want to call it, they can be really good, like the aggressive mutant card that I had. That one's great, but I feel like it's too expensive to go all in on. So honestly, just keeping it at 7 is okay. I feel like you should always be going for this basic card proficiency just because it adds the decreased cost by 1 to Longsword Slash. Makes it a lot better and a lot more usable in my opinion. The unique cards, if you really want to invest in her, this is a priority right here. 7 might be good, but I simped a bit, so I went to 10. Critical chance, even better if you can try to get these invested in. But if you're going to pick any of these basic card proficiencies, you could probably go for this top one if you really want to. But for now, I'm just sticking with this unique one just to make her Flash Slash and Iceberg Cleave a lot more better. That's the way I went, and honestly, getting a lot more crit out of her. And with all of that invested, even though my gear only gives me a 15% chance, which you really want to try to go for like maybe even 50 to 60 plus, it just can be really hard with RNG gear, unfortunately. That's just the name of the game. Now, with gear, memory fragments, there are a few ways that you can go about it. You can do the 4-piece order set, especially now that they buffed it, but I feel like Yuki in this type of position really benefits more from doing 3 2-piece sets. Now, the 3 2-piece sets that I personally use are the Blackwing, the Executioner Tools, and the Set Scarab. You can focus on attack, get crit chance, crit damage, get flat stats, especially on attack like this if you see this. That's going to be more beneficial to Yuki to make her even better. Now, the question mark might be Seth's Scarab, but that's because, in my opinion, for the other options, I feel like increasing the damage of basic cards is more beneficial just so you get more oomph for it. And for a 0 cost, getting a bit more damage couldn't hurt. And I really don't like the other option of using the Conquest 4-piece set for her. I just feel like it's not worth it, and then just using like a Blackwing set. I like more versatility, so using this 3 times 2-piece set is probably the way to go. You just have to deal with RNG and choosing what you want, especially for these other sides where it might not be perfect and you just have to keep farming. Now, one of the last things that I want to talk about that I've already talked about before is dupes. Is it worth it? I think yes and no. If you are a free-to-play, don't ever try to go for dupes. If you get lucky, you get lucky. But it could be very expensive, especially if you're not lucky. But let me tell you, removing the decreased damage amount by 20% effective Iceberg Cleave can do a lot for you and save a lot more headache. Same thing with her dupe 2, which at the start of the battle activates inspiration for cards of this unit drawn at the start of the turn for 2 turns. It's just basically quality of life that makes it a lot more easier to use Yuki. I got lucky and I managed to get this one for her as well, but honestly past 2 it just seems like more just like DPS increases, which is fine. But I just don't like when they change stuff like this where it actually removes an actual part of the kit. It's kind of a shame. I just wish they did it more in terms of like an epiphany. I'm honestly really looking forward to Chizuru. Like, she looks fantastic. I love the BDSM look, and obviously there is some story behind it, but still love that style of look. Really excited. Do let me know if you are pulling for her though. I'm sorry for taking so long to make this video, especially getting close to her banner ending, but I wanted to use her more, get to know how she plays before I made a video, so I don't sound confident in something that I know nothing about. I actually want to play the game and then also give my feedback, so I hope you guys understand. Let me know if you managed to find a good build for her, if you're using Yuki, if you even pulled, or you're still deciding, are you going to be pulling for Chizuru? Let me know. That is going to be it from me, so I hope you guys have a lovely day, lovely night wherever you're from, and as always, thank you so much for the constant support. Take care, and have a good one.